Hello, human! Welcome to the series 30 Incredible but True Facts and 1 Fake. Number 9. Just a reminder, this is an educational game in which you must figure out which fact is fake, so don't cheat. In the previous episode, some of you suggested that the fake curiosity was the one about guide dogs, number 19. Others mentioned the one about drugs in Coca-Cola, number 11. But no, we're sorry. Don't be discouraged. Better luck next time. The fake curiosity was number 24, and these were some of the people who got it right. Congratulations! Here's a reminder. In the 1970s, the mummy of Pharaoh Ramses II began to deteriorate due to the presence of fungi and bacteria. The only solution to preserve it was to transport it to Paris for restoration. However, an unexpected problem arose. French laws stated that no one could enter the country without documents, whether alive or dead. To comply with the regulations, the Egyptian government issued an official passport to the pharaoh. It included a photograph of the mummy along with his supposed date of birth. Fake. The viral passport of Ramses II is a modern digital forgery. Although the legal procedure did exist in 1974 to allow the mummy to enter France, the documents seen online with barcodes and a plastic-style design featuring the mummy's photo would have been impossible for that time. In the 1970s, passports were paper booklets, often handwritten. The real image has never been made public, and what circulates online is a design created by internet users to illustrate the story. Let's move on to the facts of this episode. Let's go. Can you lose a war against yourself? The Austrian army proved that you can at the Battle of Caransebes. In 1788, 100,000 soldiers were waiting for the Turks, but everything went wrong because of a few barrels of liquor. A fight over the alcohol ended in an accidental shootout. In the darkness, soldiers began shouting that the enemy had arrived. Because they spoke different languages, the officers shouted, "Stop!" But the soldiers thought they were Ottoman war cries. They fired at each other all night long while the emperor fled to save his life. When the Turks arrived 2 days later, they didn't have to fight. They found their enemy already defeated by their own drunkenness. Would you give your life to win a trial? Lawyer Clement Vallandigham did, though not on purpose. In 1871, he was defending a man accused of murder. To prove that the victim had accidentally shot himself, Vallandigham decided to perform a live reenactment. He took a gun he believed was unloaded, put it in his pocket, and pulled the trigger. The weapon was actually loaded. Vallandigham shot himself in the abdomen in front of everyone, proving his theory with his own wound. He won the case, and his client was set free, but the lawyer died hours later. For years, scientists blamed careless tourists and climate change for sudden wildfires in Australian forests. But in 2017, they discovered that the real culprit has feathers and a very bad temper: the firehawk. This bird doesn't wait for food to come to its kitchen outside its hiding place. It grabs burning sticks with its talons and drops them in dry areas to deliberately spread the fire. Why? The smoke forces mice and lizards to flee their burrows, serving it a grilled all-you-can-eat buffet in seconds. While science was only just confirming this, Aboriginal tribes had already been telling these stories in their legends for centuries. So now you know, if you ever see a fire start out of nowhere, remember, there may be feathered arsonists in the area. How self-centered do you have to be to hold a state funeral for your own leg? In 1838, Mexican General Santa Anna lost his left leg in battle. Years later, he decided his limb was a national martyr and organized a massive burial in Mexico City, complete with parades, masses, and a stone monument. But the people's love didn't last long. In 1844, a furious crowd, enraged by his tyranny, stormed the cemetery, desecrated the tomb, and pulled the remains from the urn. They dragged the leg through the streets of the capital, shouting, "Death to the cripple!" In 1938, the residents of Milton, a small town in the state of Washington, unanimously elected an animal to public office. His name was Boston Curtis, and what no one knew was that he was a pack mule. The town's mayor secretly registered him to prove a theory that people vote for political parties without researching the candidates. Boston Curtis won the election without receiving a single vote against him. Only after the victory did the mayor reveal the truth by bringing the mule into City Hall.
I don't know what it is, but you have got it.
In 2017, Mike Edgett discovered a secret on KFC's X account. He noticed that the brand followed only 11 people, 6 men named Herb and the 5 members of the Spice Girls. Do you get it? 11 herbs and spices. It was Colonel Sanders' secret recipe hidden in plain sight. Mike posted his discovery on X, and the story went viral. KFC was so impressed that someone had finally noticed it. They gifted him a giant painting of Mike being carried by Colonel Sanders himself while holding a piece of chicken, along with 52 coupons for free food and a thank you letter signed by the Colonel himself. Is Mondo Duplantis the smartest athlete in history, or the most ambitious? Mondo dominates pole vaulting at such a high level that he practically has no competition. Because of this, many competitions began offering bonuses of up to $100,000 to anyone who could break his world record. That's when he came up with a brilliant idea. Instead of surpassing his own mark by a wide margin, he decided to raise the bar by just 1 centimeter at each competition. This way, he has managed to break his own record again and again, collecting multiple cash prizes. Did you know that the theme song of El Chavo del Ocho cost Chespirito a fortune? For decades, we all believed that the melody was original to the show, but the truth is that it was used accidentally on purpose. The song is called The Elephant Never Forgets and was created in 1970 by electronic music pioneer Jean-Jacques Perret. Although the melody is based on Beethoven's Turkish March, the synthesizer version had owners and copyright protection. Roberto Gomez Bolaños used it without permission for nearly 40 years until, in 2009, the original composers sued Televisa. The result was a multi-million-dollar settlement to compensate for decades of illegal use.
Chavo, ¿qué te pasa? ¿Estás llorando? No, menso, me estoy lavando los ojos de adentro para afuera.
Can a video game be so beautiful that the government thinks it's a national treasure? In February 2026, this happened to a fan of the video game Expedition 33 in Iraq. The player bought a special edition that included an art book designed as an expedition journal. When the package arrived at customs, agents were so impressed by the symbols and drawings that they confiscated the book, believing it to be a stolen ancient manuscript. Instead of receiving his game, the owner got a letter from the Ministry of Culture informing him that his book had been sent to experts at the National Museum to be studied as a possible historical relic. Did you know that a single man managed to get Texas to ban last meals for death row inmates? In 2011, Lawrence Russell Brewer requested a feast fit for a king. Steaks, burgers, pizzas, ice cream, and much more. But when the food arrived at his cell, he simply said, "I'm not hungry," and didn't eat a single bite. That act of defiance angered the authorities so much that they decided to end the tradition immediately. Since then, if you're going to be executed in Texas, you eat exactly the same food as every other inmate.
I can't believe you chose this for your last meal.
Well, I guess we're both shocked today. Okay, fellas, light me up.
Can you imagine the darkest place in the world having a stop to catch Pokemon? Incredibly, Jeffrey Epstein's private island had its own Pokestop. The point of interest was called Sundial and was located right in the middle of the mysterious island of Little St. James. Since no one can legally enter, only GPS hackers managed to catch Pokemon there, just to show off the location on their profiles. The discovery caused such an uproar on social media that Niantic, the creator of Pokemon Go, had to step in immediately. In February 2026, they officially removed any trace of the game from the island to prevent it from becoming a virtual tourist attraction. At the beginning of 2024, the brand Fisher-Price had to pull its famous toy DJ Bouncin' Beats from the market. And it wasn't because the robot was dangerous for babies, but because of the controversial way thousands of adults used it online. What was supposed to be an innocent display of colors and numbers ended up becoming the perfect tool for trolling. Thanks to its recording feature, social media was flooded with videos in which the toy repeated rude phrases, insults, and completely inappropriate sounds. Faced with the digital chaos and complaints from confused parents, several stores decided the joke had gone too far, permanently removing the toy from their shelves. Here's an example of how it was used.
Oh, yeah.
How far would you go for a free gift? In 2002, the police in Chandler, Arizona, set a brilliant trap for the city's most wanted fugitives. They sent letters to hundreds of criminals, telling them they had won a state-of-the-art DVD player. Blinded by greed, the suspects showed up at a community center where there were even TV cameras to document the giveaway. But once inside, the surprise was very different. There were no DVD players, only undercover officers ready to slap the handcuffs on them. More than 20 fugitives fell into the trap, and some even arrived late, knocking on the door to claim their prize. The strategy was so funny that even The Simpsons made a parody of it.
All right, Simpson Homer, you're next.
Howdy, gents. I'm here to collect my free... Oh! Oh, my boating arm! What's going on?
You're under arrest, slime bag.
What would you do if you discovered that your 5-year-old child hacked one of the biggest companies in the world? Well, that's exactly what happened to Microsoft. In 2014, little Christopher von Hassel wanted to play games that were forbidden on his dad's Xbox. While trying to access the locked account, he discovered a ridiculous flaw. If he entered a fake password and then filled in the verification field using only blank spaces, the system let him in. Microsoft was so impressed that they named the boy an official security researcher, placing his name alongside some of the world's top engineers. As a reward, Christopher received free games, money, and a yearly subscription. Did you know that a man robbed 2 banks relying on lemon juice? In 1995, MacArthur Wheeler held up 2 banks in Pittsburgh with his face uncovered and smiling at the cameras. When he was arrested that same night, he was in shock and kept shouting, "But I used the juice." The man was convinced that since lemon can be used to make invisible ink, rubbing it on his face would make him disappear from security footage. His level of clumsiness was so epic that it inspired the Dunning-Kruger effect, which explains why people with the least skills often believe they are the most brilliant. Moral of the story: if you're going to use lemons, make it for a michelada, not for a robbery. Have you ever done something so stupid that you'd want to kick yourself? In 1937, Joe W. Armstrong created the solution in North Carolina, a curious device designed, quite literally, to kick you in the butt. The machine consisted of a metal frame with 4 articulated tubes sticking out, each ending in a boot. The rotating mechanism was operated by the user through a hand crank, turning the punishment into a completely voluntary act. And if you're wondering why anyone would invent something like this, the answer is simple. According to Joe, if you made a stupid decision, you deserved an equally stupid punishment to learn your lesson. Although the invention was never mass-produced due to how absurd the concept was, merchant Tom Haywood thought otherwise. He installed one at his gas station, where it soon became a peculiar attraction for customers. The procedure was as simple as it was humiliating. You bent over, turned the crank, and received what you deserved. Want to know what your dog is thinking? In 2013, a Swedish lab launched No More Woof, a headset that promised to translate canine brainwaves into phrases like, "That man is an idiot." They raised over $20,000 from hopeful owners. The problem? Science says a dog's brain has no grammar. It basically only thinks in hungry, sleepy, and squirrel. In the end, the project sank into a sea of delays and complaints, proving that the only ones who needed a translator were the investors to understand they were being scammed. Did you know that to protect their chip designs from plagiarism, engineers hide secret drawings inside them? In the 1990s, this practice became quite common. A famous case is the MIPS R10000 processor, whose creators engraved nothing less than the face of Milhouse, the character from The Simpsons, into the circuit. Why? If a rival company stole the design and copied it layer by layer, they would also end up copying Milhouse without realizing it, turning him into irrefutable proof of plagiarism in court. This silicon art is completely invisible to the human eye, but it's there, proving that sometimes the best way to catch an industrial spy is with a good Simpsons meme.
I did tip off the feds as to the whereabouts of our good friend Milhouse.
I'm telling you, I didn't do anything.
I don't care.
Contrary to what many believe, Mario's look wasn't designed to represent the stereotype of an Italian man, but rather because of a simple technical limitation. In 1981, Shigeru Miyamoto, Mario's creator, had to design the character on a tiny grid where every pixel counted. He gave him his distinctive mustache to separate the nose from the face, since there wasn't enough resolution to draw a mouth. His cap wasn't for style either. It was added because it was impossible to animate moving hair while jumping with the technology of the time. Did you know there's a drawing shaped like a penis on the moon and NASA never authorized it? In 1969, during the Apollo 12 mission, a tiny plaque called the Moon Museum was secretly sent, featuring several engravings made by artists of the time. But one stood out above all, the clear silhouette of a male member. Its author was Andy Warhol, who claimed it was actually a stylized combination of his initials and that the shape was pure coincidence. A rebellious engineer secretly glued the plaque onto one of the lunar module's legs without anyone noticing. And since then, that drawing has remained on the moon. That's why today it's considered the most distant graffiti in history. How much are your favorite pants worth? In 2005, Judge Roy Pearson decided his were worth $67 million. He sued a small, family-owned dry cleaning business, claiming their satisfaction guaranteed sign was an unbreakable legal contract. According to him, by losing his pants, the Chung family committed multi-million-dollar fraud that caused him mental anguish. The trial lasted 2 years and became the laughingstock of the world. In the end, Pearson lost the case, had to pay the owner's legal fees, and because of his absurd behavior, lost his job as a judge. Did you know the Blade Runner crew hated Ridley Scott so much that they fought using clothes? It all blew up in 1982 when the director said in an interview that he preferred English technicians because they actually did what they were told. The Hollywood crew, hurt in their pride, responded with t-shirts that read, "Yes, Governor, my ass." And to top it off, on the back, they wore the phrase, Will Rogers never met Ridley Scott, mocking an actor famous for saying he loved everyone. Scott, far from backing down, showed up the next day wearing a t-shirt that read, "Xenophobia sucks." It was a double jab, a complaint about being hated for being British, and a nod to the xenomorphs from his movie Alien, 1979, the hit that gave him the budget and fame of a star director to film this cinematic masterpiece. Did you know that one of the deaths in Dexter almost happened for real? During the filming of the third season, actor Jimmy Smits accidentally stabbed a stunt double with a real knife. Instead of using the retractable prop knife, he grabbed a genuine combat blade and stabbed stuntman Jeff Chase straight in the chest. Miraculously, Jeff survived because he was wearing a small plastic protector under his costume, which deflected the blade just enough to save his life. The scream heard in the scene wasn't acting. It was the real sound of someone realizing they had just been stabbed in front of the entire film crew. Have you ever paid a fortune for a wine just because it had a gold medal? Belgian sommelier Eric Boschman decided to prove that many times experts have no idea what they're really tasting. In 2023, he bought the cheapest and ugliest bottle at a supermarket for just €2.50. He removed the label, invented an elegant name, Le Chateau Colombier, and created a sophisticated story around the wine. Then he sent it to the prestigious Gilbert and Gaillard competition. The result was absurd. The jury not only failed to detect the trick, but also awarded it the gold medal, describing it as an exceptional and complex wine. Shortly afterward, Boschman revealed the prank to expose an uncomfortable reality. Many of these competitions operate more like a marketing business, where the entry fee matters more than the actual taste of the wine. Have you ever felt like you bought a bag of air with 3 chips as a free gift? In 2014, 3 South Korean students got fed up with the excessive amount of air in Orion brand packages and decided to prove it in the most ridiculous way possible. They taped together 160 bags of Poca Chip chips and built an inflatable raft. In front of hundreds of people, 2 of them climbed on and successfully crossed the Han River. The message to manufacturers was clear. You can laugh at our raft, but listen to our complaints. The most incredible part is that the pressure worked. Orion listened to the claim, admitted the excess air, and publicly committed to reviewing their packaging to add more chips and reduce bag size. In the end, the air in those chips helped inflate real change.
Open to.
In 2009, while Silicon Valley was competing over the most futuristic technology, Google decided to hire 200 goats. Instead of using noisy lawnmowers, the company brought an entire herd to its headquarters in Mountain View. Why? They were eco-friendly, didn't use gasoline, and according to Google, watching them through the window was far more relaxing for engineers than listening to the engine of a tractor. The 200 goats, along with a herding dog, cleared all the weeds in a single week. Joking around on Snapchat can cost you very dearly. In July 2022, an 18-year-old British teenager named Aditya Verma learned that his sense of humor was worth the same as a Ferrari. Before taking off on a flight from London to Menorca, he sent a private message to his friends that said, "I'm going to blow up this plane. I'm a Taliban." What Verma didn't know was that British intelligence intercepted the chat and alerted Spain. Mid-flight, passengers panicked when they saw a Spanish Air Force F-18 fighter jet pull up right next to their window to escort them. In January 2024, Spain's National Court tried him for public disorder. Although he avoided terrorism charges, prosecutors fined him €22,500, and the Ministry of Defense demanded he pay the cost of deploying the fighter jet, about €95,000. What do you do when a group of bears won't stop stealing the most expensive honey in the world?
¡Qué rico!
Turkish beekeeper Ibrahim Sedef decided that if he couldn't beat his thieves, he would turn them into his official taste testers. In 2019, after losing thousands of dollars to destroyed beehives in the mountains of Trabzon, Sedef set up a table with 4 types of honey and night vision cameras. The result was a blow to both his pride and his wallet. The bears completely ignored the cheap flower honey and the chestnut honey. They went straight for Ansa honey, a premium variety he produced himself that sells for up to $300 per kilo. Even when he switched the jars around to trick them, the bears always sniffed out and chose the luxury option. In the end, Sedef forgave them, admitting that although they're criminals, they have the taste of kings. Would you pay $229 for a bowl signed by Michael Jordan? In 2021, the company Mischief launched an irresistible offer, a limited edition of basketballs with a certificate of authenticity and a video that guaranteed the signature of Michael Jordan himself. As expected, they sold out in seconds. But here comes the twist. When buyers scanned the QR code to watch the signing video, they got the surprise of their lives. The video delivered exactly what it promised. Yes, there was a Michael Jordan signing basketballs non-stop. The small detail was this. It wasn't the Chicago Bulls legend, but an ordinary man who simply shared the same name. What? Mischief hired this unknown Michael Jordan to sign hundreds of basketballs, proving how easy it is to fool collectors using nothing more than a famous name and a clever legal trick. Although the company was heavily criticized, it faced no legal consequences. Technically, they sold exactly what they promised, a prank as brilliant as it was shameless. Tired of car thefts and alarms that only make noise? Charles Forey's solution would literally cook up a barbecue. In 1998, this South African inventor created the Blaster, a real flamethrower installed under the doors of his car. Why? He was fed up with the violence in Johannesburg and was looking for a definitive way to keep thieves away from his vehicle. His solution: cook their legs. The system was activated by a button near the driver's feet and used natural gas that didn't damage the car's paint. Although Forey believed it would be a success, sales were a complete failure and the invention was eventually discontinued. In the final scene of the 2003 film Memories of Murder, the detective looks directly into the camera. It's no coincidence. Director Bong Joon-ho said he filmed that shot thinking that the real killer might still be alive and might one day watch the movie. The story is based on the real Hwaseong murders, which took place in the late 1980s in South Korea. For more than 30 years, the case remained unsolved. Until in 2019, DNA evidence identified the true culprit, a 56-year-old man named Lee Chun-jae. When he was asked about the movie, his response was chilling. "I watched it like a movie. I felt nothing." That's all for today. Now it's your moment. Which one do you think is the fake? Write it in the comments, and don't be influenced by what others write, or you might get it wrong. If you enjoyed the series, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot. See you in the next video. Until next time, peace.